And that's the championship round. And a guy like Kamaru Usman, is going to be ready. A guy like Colby Covington, is going to be ready. So whoever the champion is, I'm favoring the other guy at this point. So Edwards almost does need one more fight. And fighting Masvidal, who I think at this point is better than Nate Diaz, would be the only other fight.
I had this gut feeling that I think Moreno can pull it off. I really felt like Moreno can pull it off. It's just, it has to do with, it's got to come with submission or maybe decision. But, freaking Moreno blew me away. And as soon as he choked him out, I was really extremely happy for Moreno, man. Question is, what's next for Adesanya? And I think, as you may know, there's that tweet from Robert Whittaker where he said, "Rest up well, see you soon."
Welcome, everybody, to the Ring Generals podcast. I am Nick Nenad. Alongside me today is Easy Eric Santos.
What's cooking, guys? Bah, bah, bah.
Guys, we have a big show for you today. A short show, but a big show. We're going old school. UFC Show, Eric Santos, Nick Nenad. We're going to be talking pretty much exclusively UFC 263. So much to talk about with the three main event fights, what happens next for each guy, who the champions are, our thoughts on some specific wins and losses and moments of the fight. And then maybe a little bit later, we'll catch up a little bit on the boxing that's been happening. But we're going to focus on UFC 263. But Eric, that's not the most important thing today. Today, we are recording on June 14th. That is the birthday of the RKJ man. So if you're wondering why he's not on, it's because he's celebrating his birthday. And I'll be heading over to his house a little bit later today to celebrate with him. But we wanted to get a podcast out, and we wanted to, of course, give a shout out to our man. I literally, like, Eric, you can agree with me on this. I said, don't come on the podcast today. Celebrate your
enjoy
birthday.
His day. No, without a doubt. So RKJ, man, happy birthday. And we definitely love all your feedback and everything you've done here on the podcast. Yeah. And even though a lot of blasphemous stuff has been running around here at the Ring Generals, but hey, it's all love around here, brother. So enjoy it out there. Okay, man? Take care.
Yeah, we love you, RKJ, man. We've been doing it for 3-4 years now. I can remember us still doing it in the shack, and he's always brings the entertainment to the podcast. Whether he knows what he's talking about or not, he'll bring he'll bring the entertainment. And you guys
in wrestling, fighting, and sports, it's a lot of entertainment from the RKJ.
And in regular life too. Regular life, we won't get into that, but in regular life, it's entertaining on the outside. If you guys think that he turns that personality off when the podcast turns off, no. That is the RKJ man. You see it everyday life.
It ain't no gimmick. It ain't no gimmick.
No gimmick. Absolutely no gimmick. All right, Eric. Let's get into this podcast today. UFC 263. God, there was so much that happened. Real quickly, your thoughts on the crowd in Arizona. This is the third crowd. We've had a full crowd. We had Jacksonville, we had Houston, and Arizona. What were your thoughts on the crowd this time compared to the other two events?
Man, it was a pumped up crowd for this one. A lot of Nate Diaz fans and a lot of Brandon Moreno fans. And, it's one of those things where I feel like it's starting to get a little bit kind of back to normal now. This is the third event with fans. So without a doubt, UFC's been doing their best to putting on great shows with fans on it. And this is just a start, because I know for sure they're going to be coming around here in the area, and they're also going to be coming in all over, across the states, and maybe hopefully they'll try to go to different, countries. Even Adesanya, he was hoping for after the whole COVID restrictions are going away, he wants his the event to be in Auckland, New Zealand, in his turf. So we could be seeing something like that. So yeah, this is the third event, and so far so good. And the next event is going to be at the T-Mobile Arena with Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor, Part 3.
I am sure that crowd would be crazy. Yeah, Eric, I thought debatably this might have been the best crowd of the three so far. And maybe it had to do with Nate Diaz being on the card. Maybe it had to do with Brandon Moreno, a Mexican-American. Well, actually just a Mexican on the card there. Arizona, obviously only a few hours away from Tijuana, from Mexico in general. So you had a big partisan crowd for those two guys, as well as Izzy Adesanya on the card, and a lot of good fights, right? 2 title fights and a big 5-round non-main event between Leon Edwards and Nate Diaz. I thought they were excited, though. I was unable to see the first few fights of the entire card. I kind of came in right when the ESPN prelims were happening, so I wasn't able to see the early crowd, how they reacted. But yeah, I thought it was a great crowd. And again, it will be great for Las Vegas. I hope it keeps going, though. These crowds are making these events can't miss, realistically. And that's what we have a podcast where we talk about pro wrestling on this podcast, obviously, and pro wrestling is lacking severely in that. And we want to see that back there, too. But UFC's doing it well. Dana White he keeps saying that the UFC Apex that those Apex shows are going to keep going for the rest of the year. He did hint a little bit at the end of his press conference that if restrictions really are pulled off in almost every single state, that he'll think about by the end of the year traveling with those Apex shows, those UFC fight nights. But as for right now, these are can't miss shows, and these crowds keep getting better and better. Now, like I just mentioned, Eric, one of the big reasons that the crowd was hyped, and the fight where the crowd might have been the most hyped, was Nate Diaz and Leon Edwards. This was the co main event, a rare 5-round non-main event, maybe even the first. I'm not sure about that, but it was definitely.
I can't recall the last fight that
high profile fight, welterweight fight between Leon Edwards and Nate Diaz. Leon, number 2 or number 3 in your rankings as far as welterweights, behind Covington or Usman, and maybe some people have him above Covington, fighting, arguably second or third most popular UFC fighter in the UFC right now. Eric, my thoughts on this fight were that Leon Edwards dominated him most of this fight. Yeah. And even a little bit into the last round, he was picking apart Diaz's leg. He was hitting him with combos. Diaz seemed to, not be able to match up with him as well. Diaz wasn't able to get him to the floor, try submissions. There was, I think, one moment where he almost had him in the middle rounds in something, but Edwards just seemed like the better fighter. And then, of course, with a minute to go, Nate Diaz throws a 2-punch combination that absolutely and legitimately wobbles Leon Edwards. He then decides to point at him, which is just typical Nate. And then they have a barrage in one of the most entertaining UFC minutes in history, where Edwards protects himself. He takes a couple more shots. He even tries to respond to Nate, and he's able to be saved by the bell. Again, Nate Diaz lost this fight. He got killed. But, Eric, what were your thoughts in that final minute when Diaz hit that 2-punch combination? Did you think that Nate Diaz was going to win the fight, or did you have a feeling Edwards was going to, be able to be saved? And how much does this show the endurance in Nate Diaz and just his superstar in general? Like, I think if he just gets killed, I'll get to your answer in a second. I think if he just gets killed all 5 rounds and loses, it really hurts the persona and the charisma of Nate Diaz. But the fact that he did this, it showed this is why we put Nate Diaz on pay-per-view. This is why he's a big draw. But nonetheless, your thoughts in the last minute, and then your thoughts on Nate Diaz after this fight.
Without a doubt, he was getting dominated throughout the entire match until like that last minute. Man, Nate Diaz, he loves to showboat, for sure, just like his older brother Nick Diaz. But the thing is with Nate, I felt like he had the chance. He actually had the chance as soon as he wobbled Leon Edwards, and I felt like Leon, he could have recovered from it, but if just Nate Diaz was just applying more pressure, and instead of just pointing at him, which a lot of fans just go, they just go completely nuts for. Even Joe Rogan and John Anik, they go nuts for, nuts for it. So the thing is that Nate Diaz, I really felt like he should have put him away instead of just pointing and just. Mm-hmm. I don't think it would hurt him at all. I don't think it would hurt his persona at all, because we already know what Nate Diaz is. We already know the kind of guy how he is with the Stockton bitch slap and the combinations. We know what he is. I mean, it's not necessary to do the pointing, but I guess like Nate thought that he had it, all under control, and he actually thought he was gonna win by just those combinations, and he thought that by giving a little bit of provoke, I thought he was going to win the match by giving it some more pressure afterwards. But I really thought he should have put him away if he was confident enough to put him down. And I'm a big fan of Nate Diaz, and so I wish that he should have done that from the beginning. But as a persona, as who he is, he's still gonna have fans. Fans still love him. Fans still love the Stockton bad boy. They still love Nate Diaz and the Diaz brothers. So I think after this fight, let alone, it just shows that how much of how much heart and how much endurance Leon Edwards has. And so I think a lot of people underestimated Leon Edwards in this one. So it just shows that Leon Edwards can go toe to toe with with a rabid dog like Nate Diaz. So he's also a bad motherfucker right there. So Leon Edwards, I believe he's like number 3 on the top 10 ranks. I believe, yeah, he's number 3, and number 2 is Gilbert Burns. So
yeah, that's bullshit. That's bullshit.
Yeah. So
Edwards should realistically hop everybody after that win.
I
know Covington's going to get the title shot, but I think at this point, if you just had to pick between Covington and Edwards is probably the guy right now because he's done a really, really good job since losing to Usman, where Covington, he has the one fight against Woodley, and I think we can both agree Woodley at the end of his career was not the same Tyron Woodley, and was not that win is not worthy, is not the same thing as Edwards, really dominating Bilal Muhammad before the eye poke, and then dominating Nate Edwards until the last minute of the fight, where Diaz gets, I don't want to call it lucky, but Diaz actually hits him with a super hard right hand, and then almost wins. But Leon Edwards has dominated almost every single fight since Kamaru Usman.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, without a doubt. So Leon is moving up, so he should be like up there in the top 10, maybe top 2 or top 3. But for Diaz, Nate Diaz, he's still gonna have a fan base. Another thing that can probably save, Nate Diaz is maybe having his brother fight later on, because there's that strong rumor that, I don't even know if it's a rumor, but it looks like it's confirmed that Dana White has had Nick Diaz, having in meetings, and so I think Nick Diaz is ready to fight by the end of this year or next year. So there's value to the Diaz brothers. So. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If one brother loses, then the other brother wins, and then if the other brother gets back and he wins, so it's just a matter of who wins and who loses. But the Diaz brothers, they're very popular. They're still popular just by their bad boy persona. So, Yeah,
I will say this though. I think Diaz needs a win in his next fight though. Like when I say Nate because Nick's not fighting, and I'm gonna wait till Nick actually comes back. I do believe he will fight again, but I don't think it's anytime soon. And for Nate, he really has not looked very good in his last 2 fights. And like we said, I think he's lost what is it now? 7 rounds out of 8 in his last 2 fights. And realistically, he potentially lost even that 5th round to a lot of people against Edwards. He just wobbled him, and I think the judges might have overreacted to that last round. Not to hold anything against Nate, but I mean he's losing almost every round now, and he's losing to guys like Masvidal and Edwards who are similar to him too. So he's not even beating the guys that go toe to toe with him with the same kind of strategy, right? So I think for Nate Diaz in the future, I think you explore another rematch with Masvidal. You explore, like you were mentioning, and I'm glad you said that, a card where you have both Nick and Nate on it, so that you can kind of give both the guys a chance, and it gives fanfare and people want to go watch the fight. Right. Or you give Nate a lesser, difficult opponent, and let him get another win so his career remains. Because I think if Nate gets killed again, like he did the last 2 fights, I think it's maybe done. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have to be fair to the guy that he is one tough motherfucker. And the fact that he was able to keep his stamina take those leg kicks, and then almost knock out Leon Edwards. It shows you he can still fight, but at the same time, we don't want to see him turn into Diego Sanchez. We don't want to see him turn into Cowboy Cerrone, where he's losing every single fight, and it just gets worse and worse. So I think for Nate, give him a guy that's similar that he can match up with well against, that's not highly ranked like Leon, or tag him up with his brother. Hey, even a Conor rematch, if Conor ends up losing badly to Poirier, I think works out. But I think we're only really looking at a few guys here Nate can fight to continue his career, if he wants to continue his career. For Leon, in my opinion, the only other fight he could do is Masvidal, because Gilbert Burns and Thompson are tied up in their own fight, I think at 264, right? And then obviously Usman and Covington is the fight that Dana White and the UFC are trying to make. So the only odd men out are Masvidal and Edwards. And I think Edwards, after what happened, has a tiny bit to prove still to be the number one contender, because I think it showed that in fight. I have to disagree with you. One thing you said about about Edwards is that he's a tough motherfucker, and the stamina, because I think the stamina showed that in the 5th round, and maybe this is because of his lack of fighting and dealing with COVID and stuff like that, he clearly almost lost. Very easily could have lost in that last round. And that's the championship round. And a guy like Kamaru Usman, is going to be ready. A guy like Colby Covington, is going to be ready. So whoever the champion is, I'm favoring the other guy at this point. So Edwards almost does need one more fight. And fighting Masvidal, who I think at this point is better than Nate Diaz, would be the only other fight besides waiting for a championship. But I think a guy like Edwards that's had so much time off needs to fight more than less, because I do not think he's the favorite in any fight versus Covington or Usman at this point. Do you agree or disagree?
No, without a doubt. Now that you put it that way, I think Leon Edwards is, if he does come across Covington and Usman, and he's going to be acting the same way, how he's going to be losing on that last round with Nate Diaz, it does concern me over how he's going to go up against a guy like Covington, who's got incredible cardio, who's going to go up against Usman, who just, took down Masvidal, and, Masvidal felt like a sack of potatoes. And so the guy, I'm a little bit concerned. It's just one thing is that, Nate Diaz just applies pressure. So, and these two other guys, they also apply pressure just like Nate. And
yeah, man.
It does also put me a concern that if Nate Diaz were to fight a guy like Covington or Usman, it's like, okay, then I don't think like as much as like fighting in the top ranks. Yeah, I think Nate Diaz is like, I don't want like another doctor stoppage for him. That's the thing, because of the scar tissue. So,
Yeah, no, and so it'd be interesting for both guys, though. I think that you have a lot of options here. You have a lot of great fights. Like, I'm down for Edwards Masvidal. I'm down for Diaz Masvidal again. I'm down for Diaz Conor McGregor, because there's some unfinished business there too. Whether you agree or disagree with what happened with the second fight, McGregor got the win. So, I think that for both these guys, they have some interesting fights left, but they're definitely going in different directions. And I just hope the UFC hooks both guys up and doesn't ruin it for him. Maybe you give Edwards a benefit of the doubt and give him an England crowd as well next, because he was really booed by this crowd.
Yeah,
putting anybody against Nate Diaz is tough, but I mean, especially a non-American against Nate Diaz is going to be really tough, because the crowd tends to favor in the U.S. obviously any U.S. fighter over someone else from a different country. So Edwards, maybe give him a fight with Masvidal in England, and I think that'd be really, really interesting, right? So a lot of interesting stuff there. But let's move on. Let's move on to the UFC flyweights. You have Brandon Moreno versus Deiveson Figueiredo 2. And the first fight was a banger. It was a draw.
Unbelievable.
There was a chance you could have really picked either the draw, the win for Figueiredo, or a win for Moreno in that fight. Arguably, I think any judge there for that fight or fan thought that it could have gone either way, and so the draw was the right way to do it. Figueiredo defends his title technically. Going into this fight, Eric, I want to say this before I give you your say on the Moreno win. I thought Figueiredo was going to demolish him. I thought that Figueiredo was going to come out with a full camp after last time only having 3 weeks to prepare, losing all that weight in a short time. I thought that Figueiredo this time around was going to get the full camp, appropriate weight cut, and was going to destroy and demolish Mr. Brandon Moreno. That did not happen.
Nope.
It was extremely surprising to me. And Brandon Moreno dominated this fight, and he gets the win. Brandon Moreno becoming the UFC Flyweight champion is cool enough for his story. But Eric, this one probably hits close to home for you. He's the first ever UFC Mexican champion. So I want to get your thoughts on that, and then give me your thoughts on the fight as well.
Well, Mexican-born champion, that is, because
Yeah.
Cain Velasquez, he's
Very good point.
half American, half Mexican,
Very
heavyweight
good point.
champion.
Tito
There's
Ortiz
that.
as well.
Yeah. Well, there's that too, as far as like, yeah. Without a doubt, when I heard that they were fighting again, I felt like Figueroa was gonna go in there. He's gonna be like, yes, there should be like no draw. I don't want decision or anything like that. Like, he goes in there with a full camp, and he goes in there. This is the best shape that he's ever been in. Moreno, he's got a lot to prove, and he felt like he would have won that last bout. That last bout that they had, the first one, was one hell of a match. Could have been considered as candidate of fighting of the year, best fight of the year. So coming into this one, I had this gut feeling that I think Moreno can pull it off. I really felt like Moreno can pull it off. It's just, it has to do with, it's got to come with submission or maybe decision. Mm-hmm. But, freaking Moreno blew me away. And as soon as he choked him out, I was really extremely happy for Moreno, man. I couldn't believe it. And then, like, I was like, hell yeah. Like, I was just cheering for the guy. I was just happy for the guy. And, the show of respect of what Figueroa did for Moreno, that shows a lot. Even Figueroa was happy for him. He was happy for him. He just held him up, and that just shows like a lot of respect from Figueroa. Moreno, who knows? I'm happy for the guy. I can honestly say that Figueroa and Moreno kind of saved the flyweight division. Both those guys, they saved the division because it felt like the division was going to go, it was going to go away. And so I was concerned that was going to be the case. But I'm just glad that these two guys are getting the recognition. And Moreno, he's getting more and more recognition, and he's getting a lot more popularity. They already did like a mural of him in Tijuana. So, that just says it all. And so, that's it's awesome. I'm happy for Moreno. Could I be hinting maybe like a rematch between those two? Maybe in the up and coming future. But as of right now, I'm looking at the ranks. I'm seeing number 2, Askarov, number 2 as the top in the number 2. So that could be another one that Figueroa is going to go up against, or vice versa. Figueroa is going to go up against Moreno in the rematch.
Yeah, it's interesting to see what happens next. But man, I'll tell you, man, that moment was so awesome when he won it. Eric, it was shocking to me too. Like, I was watching, and I gave away what my prediction was. I thought that Figueiredo was going to kill Brandon Moreno. So I was almost waiting for Figueiredo to get the upper hand, to get a knockout, to get a submission, and it just never happened. And then when I saw the way Brandon Moreno was handling himself on the ground, in the position he was, and then seeing the way Figueiredo was handling himself on the ground, I was like, dude, this has a chance to be a finish for Moreno. He tries the rear naked choke the first time. Figueiredo gets out of it, and then a few seconds later, Moreno put his arm around the neck of Figueiredo, and I knew it was over. And I put my hands on my head. I put my hands out in the sky. I was like, oh my goodness, he actually won. He didn't even know how to react when he won. And then you said he starts breaking down. The crowd is going absolutely nuts. And Figueiredo showing class in this moment too was one of the best things I've seen in the UFC in a while. That was a super cool moment. It was almost like something from a movie. And dude, you go from Nate Diaz, that last minute, to that moment. I mean, I don't think we've heard a UFC crowd ever be that loud in like a 30, 40-minute span. Like, that was so cool, those two last moments, even though the Diaz one wasn't even a finished product and he didn't actually get the win. But man, was that fun to watch? And obviously it made me feel good too for Moreno. But yeah, as far as what happens next, man, I don't know. But you do have Askarov next. And that's a formidable fight. And I was looking up a second ago. I think they might have fought already. Just give me 1 second to look this up. But that's not a big money fight, right?
Right.
It's it's like one of those things where you need I think you need something extra. You need a star to come back, maybe a Henry Cejudo, right? Or
he was in the crowd.
He
was in the crowd.
He's in the crowd. He keeps kind of baiting and talking about who he wants to fight next, but that weight cut is tough. And so unless you have a star lined up, I think you need to hook up Brandon Moreno and put it in maybe Mexico or put it in another state where there's a lot of Mexican people in it so that he has a backing for the fight. Put it in Texas, put it in California, put it in Arizona again. I'll put it in Nevada, right? You need to rise this fight up because Askar Askarov is going to have no fans coming in. And Brandon Moreno, and not only is obviously you have the Mexican part of it, but he's just a good guy. He's an interesting guy. He's just kind of like a normal dude that's fighting in the UFC. He said that he was going to become champion 5 years ago, and he became champion. So, he's a good guy, but he's not the biggest draw unless you have the Mexican crowd behind him. So I think that you need to hook him up with somebody famous, or if you're going to do Askar Askarov or Alexandra Pantoja, it needs to be somewhere where Brandon Moreno has the crowd behind him. That's my thoughts on that. So, yeah, very great moment, great 2 moments. And then, Eric, we have one more fight.
Forgot about.
I'm sitting there already drained. I'm like, this is
We
ridiculous.
actually forgot about another great moment. This happened in the prelims. This was Terrence and Matt Frivola, where he knocked him out in 7 seconds. Not sure if you saw that one.
And then hurt his leg during the celebration.
Yeah, he hurt his leg as soon as the celebration.
Yeah. It reminded me of Johnny Walker.
Yeah.
That's what it reminded me of. And it was just, it's one of those things. That was, I think, the moment. Well, no, Eric, I'll tell you this too before we do get to the main event. How about Paul Craig and Jamal Hill? That was one of the I mean, here's the thing. We go from Chris Weidman snapping his ankle and leg and everything in half to Jamal Hill literally not being able to tap out because of the way his arm was. So, yeah, a lot of cool moments on this card. And again, it lived up to the hype for sure. And then, like I was saying, man, we have one more fight, and it's Izzy Adesanya versus Marvin Vettori. And those guys been talking so much shit before the fight. It was like, what's going to happen? It was absolute circus. I was watching it at work, and I'm like, I can't even watch this because they're cussing so much. It's too loud. Like this is nuts.
And Vettori just kept screaming. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and there was a lot of nonsense from both guys, but nonetheless, we have this main event fight. And Eric, I'll tell you straight up, man, disappointing, absolutely disappointing for Marvin Vettori. Marvin Vettori not only was not listening to his coach, he was doing the same thing over and over in the fight. He was delusional. He thought he won the fight, and he did not put up a good strategy against Israel Adesanya. It ended up making the fight not what it should have been. And Izzy just kind of had to do what he had to do because he's so fucking talented. But I agree with Izzy what he said after the fight. He said, I saw Vettori's soul leave his eyes at one point. I think that's what happened, bro. I don't think this guy was in this in any way. And I think maybe all the shit talk was just to mask him being scared for this fight. But he did not show up. He did not look like a legitimate contender. And it was disappointing for me. Great for Izzy, but disappointing for me. What was your thoughts on this fight?
I really felt like there were some things that Vettori, he should have. He said that, I went back into the tapes and I corrected the things that when the first encounter that he had with Adesanya, and he decided to go back and correct all the mistakes. The thing is that, he didn't listen to his coaches, and he really felt like he was confident enough to take him down with those takedowns. Little did he know is that Adesanya, he was already been practicing those takedown defenses. After that Jan Blachowicz match, it just showed that Adesanya, he said that, I got to start doing some more takedown defenses because, all these guys are going to come after me. Now Vettori's going to come after me. He's going to do the same thing too. So Vettori, tried to do that, but good thing that Adesanya got out of it. And so, he would rely on his kickboxing, rely on his boxing there too, and there were some funny moments where at the end of the round, at the end of the 5th round, I would see that Vettori would just come in and then try to put him in the clinch. And then you see He tried to hit him, and then Adesanya, he was like he wasn't even feeling pain, and then you saw him like spanking him and like giving that ass grab, and I'm like, oh dude, this is just comedic, and that's when I knew that Adesanya had it all he already had it in the bag, and he was gonna win that match. So yeah, Adesanya right now at this point, he's back on the horse after that loss that he had with Jan Blachowicz. I think he was able to redeem himself after this one, but. Yeah, I was hoping that Vettori would have been a little bit better, but just proved that Adesanya was the better fighter. And when he said that he stared into his eyes and his soul left, I guess there may be a point in there. And so the question is, what's next for Adesanya? And I think, as you may know, there's that tweet from Robert Whittaker where he said, "Rest up well, see you soon."
Yeah. So no, damn right. And we all know that's the next fight. Izzy called it out. That was supposed to be the fight in the first place, but Whittaker wasn't ready. Well, we're not going to make comments on that necessarily because we know there's been stuff happening in Robert Whittaker's life in the past. So I'm going to give that guy a pass when it comes to wanting to take a break, right? But he did fight. He did fight Kelvin Gastelum and all that stuff. But we want to see. Yeah, we want to see this fight because I think Eric, there's a lot of unfinished business here because I have stated so many times I don't think Robert Whittaker's head was in that fight against Izzy Adesanya. I don't think he was fully there. I don't think he was fully prepared, and there was outside stuff happening to him that made him not prepared for that fight. I will defend the guy. Whether that's true or not, that's what I think. So Whittaker looks on track now again. Izzy, after this big win, easy win over Vettori, he's on track again. This is the best middleweight fight you can have right here. Right. And I am so excited, and I do hope it happens in Australia. If it's not going to happen close to home for us to go watch, Eric, I hope it happens in Australia. I hope it happens in New Zealand. I hope they promote this fight. They put on a big main event, and I hope that it happens, by the end of the summer or early fall, so we can get, some more Izzy Adesanya, action, and we can watch Robert Whittaker, which we personally have watched, do some of the coolest and entertaining fights we've ever seen. So, yeah, that's the next fight. Early prediction on that, again, I think Robert Whittaker is the closest skill-wise to Israel Adesanya, but that's not saying that much. That's not saying that he's going to win. Izzy Adesanya is in a place right now where unless he moves up a weight, moves up 20 pounds and fights a guy that's 220 pounds, I think Izzy's beating everybody. So early thoughts is Izzy at this point is going to win, but his best competitor is Robert Whittaker. What's your thoughts on that fight coming up, later this year?
Early to tell. As much as I love Whittaker and I support the guy, but with this clear mind after that one hell of a war that he had with Kelvin Gastelum, in my gut feeling, and I will stand by this right now. I may change it later, but that's just giving you a heads up. If this does happen, I feel like Whittaker will win this one. Just having a much more clear head, much more open Whittaker, and this would show to me that this is much more of a dangerous Whittaker than he was before. I think that was a huge wake-up call for him after when he went up against guys like Till, when he went up against guys like Gastelum. And even then, if he would have went up against Costa, I would say that Whittaker would have beaten him. So I think that Whittaker would, run over Adesanya. So
Holy shit. Run over? My goodness.
I think so, because now I'm seeing Whittaker improving. I think he really did go back and improve himself. And so I think that Whittaker, he does have a shot against Adesanya.
I agree with you, Eric, that he has a shot. Do I agree he's going to run him over? Absolutely not. I will say this, though. This will not be a boring Izzy Adesanya fight.
No, it won't.
We know how much Whittaker will pressure. We know how entertaining he is. This will not be Marvin Vettori. This will not be Paulo Costa. This will not be Yoel Romero. This is the fight to watch. Not only is it a good matchup, the winner will win in convincing fashion, or it will be an entertaining fight, right? And so that's why I'm so excited. And for fans that don't know a lot about Robert Whittaker, understand that this guy is a dog. He goes for it. He's technically sound. He can do a lot, and this will be an entertaining fight. There won't be a fight where there's not a lot of action. So I'm excited for it. I was excited about this card. Yeah. Card lived up to the hype. The next card, like we mentioned, Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier. At a later date, we'll be discussing that. That happens on July 10th. So only, less than a month away for us here and anybody watching. Real quick, Eric, I want to get your thoughts on, don't give long thoughts on this because we need to end this podcast, but your just thoughts on Logan Paul and Floyd Mayweather. That happened, over a week ago. What were your thoughts? Yeah. Did you end up watching? Your just thoughts on that whole spectacle and fight?
Man, that was a fight? I don't even know that was even a fight. All I saw was an exhibition match because how I saw the rules play out, it was just a way to keep Mayweather's record intact. Okay. Yeah. And it was a good way for Mayweather to showcase everyone who Logan Paul is, if he can box or not, with the greatest boxer of all time. So, it was just it was just an exhibition match. That's all I saw. Nothing really fancy. Yeah, I mean, hate to say it, man. I mean, I was not looking forward to it at all because I was more focused. I think there was a pay-per-view that night, right? I think there was a UFC pay-per-view, or may have been another.
No, it was a Sunday. I'm trying to think what was on the docket on that Sunday. I think it was only that fight.
Really? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Because sometimes they always have it on Saturdays. So, yeah. I mean, nothing special. Mayweather, his record is intact. You guys didn't see much. Anybody out there who's watching right now, probably looking at the highlights. If you saw a knockout, don't worry about it. You didn't see a knockout. So, yeah. Nothing much to say about it, man. It was just an exhibition match.
I got you. And there's nothing much for me to say about it, too, technically. I will say Floyd surprised me with how bad he looked. And Logan surprised me with his endurance. Although his endurance wasn't there, for a guy that's only boxed 3 times in his life, his endurance was there. But again, kind of a money grab for both guys, more Floyd Mayweather than anything. I will say this, though, there was a lot more interest than I thought from outside parties. Like where I went to go watch the fight, it was a packed place and everybody was into it. So they did a good job of promoting it. People were interested. That kind of stuff still lives up, like McGregor and Mayweather a couple years ago. We've had, Muhammad Ali fight guys. We had Antonio Inoki fight back in the day. So those kind of fights work out as long as they're not too desensitized, right? Or they're used up. We're going to see Jake Paul and Tyron Woodley later in the year. And I'll watch that. Tyron Woodley is a dog. And in a boxing match, I want to see if Jake Paul can beat him, right? But, I will say the only thing that came out of that was the interest in it seemed a little bit high. And I think a lot of people, including Dana White of the UFC, were a little bit surprised at how well it did money-wise and how much interest there really was. So, not much to say. Floyd should retire and Logan, fight somebody similar. I think anybody skill-wise is going to beat him. I mean, he's not going to fight Canelo. He's not going to fight a heavyweight. He's not going to fight Conor McGregor because I think Conor McGregor beats him too. So I don't know. I don't even want to speculate. I don't even want to give these guys credit and all that stuff. But I just think Logan Paul did a good job. He came out the winner of all this stuff. But do we really care? No. On this podcast, we cared only because it was part of fighting lore, and it was the biggest boxing match in this month, right?
Yeah. If it was for the title, obviously Mayweather would have taken it seriously, and he would have just completely. He wouldn't let Logan Paul showcase everybody. I think Mayweather would be more on the offensive and just put him away early. But if it wasn't for the title, or if it wasn't for anything, about bragging rights, then I think Mayweather would have won. But there was really nothing on the line. That's the thing that I think a lot of people may not see is that there was nothing on the line. It was just just boxing, just exhibition.
I agree. Yeah. Just exhibition fight, no winner, all that stuff. Yeah. I do think Floyd won, but it wasn't as convincing as I thought it would be. Yeah. All right, guys, that does it for this podcast. We hope you enjoyed our UFC analysis. I hope we went in depth enough for you, and I hope that you agree with our statement. And if you don't, that's fine too.
Leave it in the comments.
Of course, leave it in the comments. Post it on the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever the hell you want to do. Once again, happy birthday to the RKJ man. As the time we're recording this, it is his birthday. It will not be by the time this podcast is released, but say happy birthday to RKJ man on all the social medias in the comments as well. Give that man some credit because he's done some marvelous work for this podcast, as we both know. But yeah, that's it for this podcast. We will be back soon. Eric, take it away. End this podcast and stop.
Hey, guys, like, comment, and subscribe. But as always, raise a glass in the sky and salute the ring generals.